This barrier is absolutely critical to border security.
Tonight, President Donald Trump gave his highly awaited speech on the border, which comes as the shutdown now stretches into its third week. Democrats and Trump have been at an impasse over border wall funding, and the White House saw this speech as an opportunity for the president to speak directly to the American people and try to make his case for why this border wall that he says he needs $5.7 billion for is actually necessary. But the president's speech, as is often the case, was filled with a number of exaggerations, a number of factual errors that Democrats have been seizing on since he finished his speech to try to undermine his argument.
There is a growing humanitarian and security crisis at our southern border.
Now, you could argue that there is indeed a humanitarian crisis going on right now. We've recently had the deaths of 2 children in U.S. custody after making the trek to cross the border. You have more families than ever who are coming here trying to seek asylum. And the way that the Trump administration has tried to handle that has created this giant backlog where you have families, you have young people who are sitting there waiting for weeks, sometimes even months, in pretty dire conditions.
But all Americans are hurt by uncontrolled illegal migration.
The president also described a national security emergency, which is harder for him to make the case for. For instance, there's been a pretty dramatic drop, for instance, in the number of illegal immigrants who are caught trying to cross the border between ports of entry, trying to enter illegally. For instance, back in 2000, there were 1.6 million of those people who were caught. Last year, there were only 400,000 caught.
In the last 2 years, ICE officers made 266,000 arrests of aliens with criminal records.
In fact, studies have shown that immigrants actually commit fewer crimes than native-born Americans do.
Our southern border is a pipeline for vast quantities of illegal drugs.
The only problem with his argument is that the vast majority of illegal drugs that are believed to be smuggled into the country are not actually done so between ports of entry. They're done at the border crossings with people trying to hide drugs, putting them on their persons, hiding them in vehicles as they cross through the border. Democrats
will not fund border security.
That just simply isn't true. The difference here is in how you define border security. For President Trump, border security equals this wall that he's promised his supporters since the first day of his campaign. For Democrats, they argue that a wall doesn't make any sense. It's not the best way to try to solve any of the problems at the border, and instead, they have repeatedly provided funding for other measures, things like technological enhancements, even some fencing along various places of the border.
Hopefully, we can rise above partisan politics.
The White House went into this speech understanding that they would be under a lot of scrutiny. They knew that networks would be running live fact checks as the president was speaking, and therefore they were pretty careful. The president delivered prepared remarks. Looking at the transcript versus his prepared speech, he didn't make a single change. He really stuck to the script.
The wall will also be paid for indirectly by the great new trade deal we have made with Mexico.
That said, we still have the president continuing to make claims such as saying that Mexico is actually indirectly paying for the wall via this new Mexico-Canada trade agreement. That agreement hasn't even been ratified yet. So he continues to pepper his speech, even when they try very carefully to stick as closely to their statistics as possible. He still insists on including things that just aren't factually accurate.